AAC AT and AAC Tools for Literacy for All. So the 10 elements of successful readers and writers are knowledgeable others, means of communication and interaction, repetition with variety, cognitive engagement, cognitive clarity, personal connection to curriculum, encouraging of risk-taking, significant time allocation, comprehensive instruction, and high expectations. So we're just going to kind of further give a nod to the author's definitions of these elements. So knowledgeable others is people who believe. All children should regularly hear they are smart and capable and important. And that was something that I think resonated with all people because it was something that we all believe in. And if you don't believe in that, then it might be that you haven't been around some of these complicated bodies enough to know how amazing and smart and capable they really are. Means of communication and interaction. So spelling is a flexible and versatile skill that ultimately enables individuals to communicate. And just like, why is this important to me? Why do I even need to know this? Repetition with variety. They talk in the book about revise, revisit, analyze. Revise, revisit, analyze. Instead of just reading it twice, there's a little bit different way to do it than just revise, revisit, and reanalyze. So, you know, one thing I do I've done with my kids is I've read them a book, something like Three Little Bears, and then I will revise it and I say, okay, what's your story? The three little whats. And they go on to let's go to your category page, let's find animals, let's find who your three littles are, right? And maybe they don't eat food by mouth. So when the character enters the house, maybe they enter the toy room. And what does the character play with? And so I revise it a little bit and let them tell their own version, but it's within a known framework at that point. So it's not just repetition, but repetition with variety. And I think that's something to consider. Cognitive engagement refers to the act of putting persistent effort into mental processing in order to learn. That is something that some of our kids will look like they're not cognitively engaged, and some of that has to do with seating and positioning. And so we need to be sure that we're positioning our kids in a way that they are able to cognitively engage and they're in a learning state. Cognitive clarity, I'm not sure why I said CG there, but CC, what's in it for me? Again, these are just like, we need to kind of be like, okay, so for example, in the Three Bears, we're making a Three Bears book, and every chapter is each kid's version of this. What's in it for me is I get to participate in something. I get to it's going home to my mom. After this, I get to add artwork to my story, whatever it is that is going to be motivating for them to be part of it. It's not just literacy entertainment and I'm going to listen to a story. I need to pay attention to the story because it is expected that I am smart and capable and important and that I have something to add, and that's why I need to pay attention. The last 5 elements are personal connection to curriculum. The quote says, and this is just a Karen Erickson quote. Honestly, they quote her in the book. So she's an author and she quotes herself. So this is even in quotes in the book, which I think is funny. But it is something she says a lot if you've ever been to her classes. And it's not our job to make students do anything. It's our job to make them want to. And that is very much something I believe in, and also something I consider when I want to do hand over hand. Consider when you want to do hand over hand. And are you doing that because they really don't know where the buttons are, or are you doing that because they're so uninterested in it, there's no connection to them personally that they don't want to put the physical effort in? And so making something exciting, making it interesting, and providing the wait time for them to participate is its own part of personal connection. If we don't have the time to wait for their personal contribution, then we don't make the personal connection. Encouraging of risk-taking, responding with encouragement even if it's wrong. They give a lot of examples in the book, throughout the book actually, of them saying something like, well, what letter does your name start with? And then they pick the wrong letter. And I think the scripted response on that, it was like, oh, you picked D. Dylan's name starts with D. Instead of, wrong, buzzer, gong show. It's more like, how can I teach you the letter you picked, the sound that makes, and why that's an important letter and sound to all of us, even though it doesn't start your name. So they give some examples like that. It's not that everybody gets a trophy. It's not that we say, yes, that's right, your name, although it's Billy, does start with D. No, we're not saying that they're correct. But also, I think when we think about wanting to be able to respond with encouragement, consider your questions, and consider initially the question of how can I phrase this in a way where there isn't really a right or wrong answer, so I can in fact be encouraging. So let's go back to the 3 bears for just a second. There's 3 bears. So you've picked 3 dogs. Once upon a time, there's 3 dogs. Now who's going to walk into the, who's going to come into their house while they're out? Is it a boy or a girl? Girl. And what does her name start with? Any letter they pick is correct. Oh my goodness, you picked G. There's a Gracie in our classroom. It could be Glenda. Anybody have a Grandma Gladys? And you just, there's no wrong. So consider how you are going to respond if in fact there is a right or wrong answer. And consider, is there freedom to create, revisit, reanalyze, contribute without error, so that we can become familiar with the keyboard, the letters, the sight words on our device without fear of failure. Significant time allotment, that they're saying 2 hours a day. Right now, if you are doing any kind of online school, you probably already know that 2 hours a day is a very long time. So how we modify that, I'm not sure, but I do believe it's completely doable within a normal 6-hour school day, especially if the SLP, the OT, the PT, and the special ed teacher are on the same page. And there are many strategies to use so that they can actually meet physical goals, language goals, and literacy goals, working on the same thing. CI, comprehend. So I pause on that because I am teaching a 6-hour class on Friday on assistive technology for early intervention and for complicated bodies, and I cover a little bit more of this in detail. And that in particular, the co-treat piece, incorporating all that, is another whole class, to be honest. But thinking about that 2-hour goal, and where do you start? And that's not, you can see right away that if you're doing letter of the day or letter of the week, you're not going to hit 2 hours. So this does need to be a little bit more complex. It needs to be a deeper dive than possibly what's happening. And it needs to be, there needs to be engagement to the point where personal connections are made. So doesn't mean you read Harry Potter for 2 hours, right? I mean, there's ways to do literacy for 2 hours, but with all these elements in mind, that's going to take some creativity. Okay, comprehensive instruction is engage with the text, communicate effectively, recognize letters and words. And one of the things that I feel like is not done enough is what typical kids get at old school library time, where they're holding up a book and they're saying, what do we think this story is about just by looking at the pictures, right? What do we think it's going to be about? let's make some predictions. Oftentimes we want to go straight into the story, or we want to go straight into, they can't participate until they know more. But actually, we don't do that with typical readers. With typical readers, we analyze from the get-go. What information do we have already? How can we get our brain ready to start thinking about things? Is the person on the front cover a boy, a girl, an elephant, a giraffe? Okay, so what do we already know about giraffes? They're tall, they live outside, right? So we do that with our pre-K and K in library time, and we skip over some of those things that actually get them ready to engage, which is get them, now they've seen on their device perhaps, okay, I've seen on my device where giraffe is, I've seen where I can go to describe. These are words that may be used as we work through the story. So figuring out how to front load a story can facilitate that comprehensive instruction. And high expectations. I was like, why did I write the word he there? Okay, so high expectations is the last one. No one is too anything to learn to read or write. And the only thing I would say about that is the only way somebody is to something is if they're asleep. And you know the difference between asleep and possum. And if they're playing possum, you're moving forward. If they're asleep, we are, again, we're coming back to positioning. And I'm going to cover a little bit of that in my class on Friday. And I think in November, I want to say maybe 5th and 6th, 8th and 9th, I don't know, somewhere in there. Adaptive Switch Lab is also doing a conference for Special Ed Technology Center, and seating and positioning is covered there. So if that's something that you don't know anything about, or you feel like you're an SLP, so it might not apply to you, and as you work through some of these literacy things, you realize that this level of alertness and this being comfortable and ready to learn, I do need to know more about positioning. SETC has some upcoming classes to help you with that. I want to just pause for just a minute and see what you guys have to say about these 5 elements, or anything I just mentioned. Anything ring true, anything you want to call me on that you think isn't true. These 10 elements. In fact, what I'll do is run back to this slide that has all 10. And I'm just going to, I'm just going to go back to this one for just a minute. Yeah, Sari is right. She says that front loading the story also helps the supporting adults, like your paraeducators, find some of the vocabulary that might come up in the story. So sometimes there's hesitancy among your paraeducators to use communication devices, or there's a tendency to go, we're just going to do a low-tech board so everyone has the same thing, so I'm not fumbling. So we're reducing it to something that's non-functional. So give everyone the opportunity to fumble for a minute and find vocabulary that might be relevant. And don't be, then, it doesn't mean you have to do that, a new story every single day. It just means that you might want to find that help both kids and adults take pause and give permission to explore, to find vocabulary that might be meaningful. I know it's an uncomfortably long period of time for me to be silent, but I also really want participation, and I really want to know what you guys are thinking about these 10 things.
That's good modeling, Brenda, of the silent, the expectant wait.
If I try to talk, it's really loud in my background because I have my child educating himself, and so I have like a lot of extra math song going on, so I am hesitant to jump in.
No problem.
No problem. And if you do feel like your background noise is going to be hard, throw something in the chat. Yeah, appreciate the reminder of giving students opportunities to give full answers, directing things like choosing first letter. Repetition with variety is the thing that's standing out for me as well, Mary. How do you get creative with the variety so that there's enough repetition to actually learn, but variety to stay engaged? That's the trick, isn't it? Okay, I'm excited. So finding it hard, challenging to find materials of interest for older students. I totally agree with that. I think sometimes we go nonfiction, but that's not always a fit. I actually have started to do some chapter books for my older students that that I can break down. So something like Romeo Riley is a book I read right now, and it's written from the perspective of a person in a wheelchair with AAC, and he is nonverbal. And I can break that down. I can read 2 pages, and it's very relatable because he's at school and he has equipment, and he has thoughts that he can't express and things like that. I also have kids that are ready for a Harry Potter, and we break it down, reread it in smaller sections. I let mom know, and she rereads it at home. But don't be afraid to jump up into stories that they have to retain information over time. Most of our older kids are really ready for that. I'm really dedicated to find ways to significant time allocation and repetition for, yep, I know. And I feel like that's the only thing you can do, is set the dedication for that significant time allotment, both for significant time for instruction and significant wait time for participation. And both of those can be challenging given the busyness of a day. I moved on just to let you know that some participation can happen with low tech and high tech. And again, there's another section that I'm doing on Friday about this in more detail. And I have a lot of video of even online kids with switch access that are using this kind of stuff. But one thing I wanted to mention is that any button with voice output, Big Mac, whatever you have, can be used to increase participation in the shared reading. When they're younger and in preschool and things like that, there's those repeating phrases, but he was still hungry in the Hungry Caterpillar. Or, oh, there's a little old lady who's not afraid of anything, and it says behind her she could hear, you know, there's all these repeating phrases, and they can be part of that. Even things like opinions, I like it and I don't like it, me too and not me. Those are things that, what do you have in common? This story has a girl. Do you have that in common? How many of us in this room are girls? Oh, okay, you're the same and different, right? Same, different, all those kinds of things. We're working on a lot of language concepts, but you're still trying to draw that personal connection between the character and the person. Step by step can set up for asking questions. Who was in the story? What was it? When was it? That can be set up already, and they could take turns going around and asking questions, repeating phrases that are more than one line, a statement and a follow-up, which means in the story, this happened. And then the next button might be, how do you feel about that? Or tell me, do you like that? And so you're setting them up to hear how a step-by-step would work, and retelling the story. Again, once my kids have explored and retold the whole Three Little Bears in their version, I will put it on a step-by-step so they can share with the group. So there's a lot of ways that they can do reading and writing with some simple and cheaper technology than high tech. But here's high tech, and we're going to look at a little bit of Words for Life, Proloquo, TouchChat, and GoTalk. I will tell you that my strength is TouchChat and NoviChat and GoTalk, because I have regionally, I'm from Arizona, and TouchChat is the go-to here. I know you guys have a lot of Proloquo users there, and Words for Life / Unity has been around since the beginning, before my, I don't know, forever, because 20 years or so for Unity. So, you know, there's always a few that are using that. But I'm just going to tell you, as I hop over to my iPad and we start talking about some examples, I'm just going to fess up and that I tend to prefer, and I'm more familiar with those. I'm familiar with GoTalk because it's one of the best applications for two things. For literacy, I believe, because you can make things, you have a lot of freedom in how you create information, and because it is excellent for two-step scanners on the iPad. And it's a cheap app. So some of you in the districts have GoTalk. Some of you have GoTalk on your iPads. It's not prohibitively expensive, even for families. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to hop out to the AAC apps and take a look at a few of those things that I mentioned related to those 10 aspects. And again, I'd just love to have your feedback, or if you have other strategies and ideas that you're like, I can't believe she talked at us for an hour and never said blah. Please just say the blah now, even if you think it might be coming, because I'm not always as comprehensive as I hope to be. So what I'm going to do now is stop sharing my screen, and you guys, and then I'm going to reflect my iPad on the screen. And for those of you who are going to be doing some online, I highly recommend you looking into your system and how you can reflect a similar, if not the exact same thing of your the high-tech app on your screen. For me, I'm a Mac user, and I use the mirror opportunity. I'm actually going to kind of show you this way if I can. So you know my code now. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in case you needed that, I'm gonna pull down here, and I'm gonna do screen mirroring, and then things are gonna pop up that are within my Wi-Fi, and I'm gonna say my iMac, and on my iMac through Reflector 3, which is what I use, a code comes up, and I have to put that code in here.
Brenda, can I pause you for a sec?
Yeah.
If you are having a hard time seeing Brenda's screen, depends on what your setting is for Zoom right now, there's a little thing in the top right of her screen where you can pin her video, and that will make her the largest screen that you can see.
Okay, so do you want me to do that one more time? Sure. So I'm trying to not do so much glare, but if I pull that down, right under the moon is a thing that says screen mirror. And then there's my list of ideas. I have an Apple TV, I have a iMac, I have a MacBook Pro. So I'm going to do iMac because that's what I'm on right now. The code comes up, and now I'm on. And let me show you what it looks like on my side right now. So now this comes up as a screen mirror. I'm using Reflector 3. Reflector 3 looks like this at the bottom, and it is a paid thing. I think it was like $140, but it's not yearly or weekly or monthly or anything. You own it, it's on there, and it works for everything. That's really great for Mac. I know there are a ton of other options and cheaper options. So I'm just fortunate enough to work for a special ed technology center, and that's what our staff uses. But if I didn't, I probably would still do it because I am 6, almost 7 months into teletherapy here. So we went to lockdown in the beginning of March, and most of my students have not returned to in-person. So I've been using this for a while. So I'm going to just, that we sidetracked there, but for those of you who just felt like, oh my gosh, I need to know how to do that, that's how to do it. So now I'm able to show my icon. So I want to do 2 things. I will get to the AAC stuff, I promise, but I do want to show you what can be built, what types of things could be built within GoTalk. I would also love to figure out, and maybe one of you know, how to even share what I've already created in here. So here's what I do in GoTalk. By the way, let me just start here. You'll see that I have first letter Ellery, first letter Kira, because what I have done in GoTalk is I have done the letter, capital and lower. I've done a word, a sight word, and I've done a word that is meaningful to them. So this looks pretty similar, but for Ellery, her name starts with E. So E should be her name. But for others, maybe it's elephant, maybe it's something else. So she helped me make her alphabet. Incredibles is her I. So it's very personal, and that was one thing, right? Personal connection and making sure that we are teaching letters that matter to them. Okay, so that is one thing I like making it. Then by the way, then I printed my laminated my Velcro. However, she's eye gaze, so I use a low-tech eye gaze board, and it's a very personal alphabet, and I make them for all of my kids. That takes some time, but it makes them very invested in their alphabet. The next thing I've done on GoTalk is, okay, Brenda, literacy. There we go. I disguised it and called it literacy, yet couldn't find it. Okay, so here I have created some phonemic awareness, teaching vocabulary, comprehension. I want to jump to Silly Sally 1, I think. No, it's not that. It's stripes. Sorry, just a minute. Let's do this, my books. So what I did here is I made a bookshelf, and I have taken pictures of books, and that way they could use a switch to touch a button.
Silly Sally.
And
Silly Sally went to town. Silly Sally went to town, walking backwards, upside down.
I wanted to do recorded speech because I felt like in that particular book, the rhyme mattered. So this is something, all this can be created in GoTalk, and I've done a lot of classes on how to do all this, but I just want to remind you, but I want to talk about really quickly the stripes page. And this is one of those ones where if you're on a 2-step scanner, you can scan through these questions. What's the story about? How does she get the stripes? How does it end? So I have them before we even get started.
What is this story about?
What do you think this story is about? And I've given him some options. She's learning to ride a bike. She's sick. She's friends with a zebra. He is sick. I've thrown in some things linguistically, like it's a girl. Do we know pronouns? What do we want to try to, I've made the set small. I've made it multiple choice, but I've given him some options and to analyze what you see on the cover. So as I move through this, I've done some of the same things as well as, just a minute.
Brenda, after you find what you're looking for, there's a question if you could help explain what it looks like when you're trying to find out what those high interest things are for kids, like I for Incredibles for Ellery. How are you going through, are you doing a list or choices? That's a question that came up.
Okay, so for the Incredibles exactly, I actually had parent input. So I said, we are doing a special alphabet for Ellery. We would love to know the names of your pets, her favorite movies, her favorite songs, in case she would like to choose those for her special alphabet, so that I present her some of the favorites I might not know about. So they have like a whole bunch of animals, and none of them got picked for any of their letters, but Incredibles did get picked for I, and I'm putting ice cream and other things I know she likes, and she's picking Incredibles. So that's how I did it. I had parents give input on special people and favorite things, so that I was sure that when given multiple choice or given yes, no questions, I was able to personalize the alphabet. And I even had them send in pictures. And once I honed in on it, I was like, she picked mom for her M word. Can you please send me a picture of yourself? Kind of thing. All right, this is another thing. If you know Stripes, it's like basically whatever she eats, she turns into. So again, it was like, if she ate these things, what color would she turn? And so I'm just giving them other ways to revisit, recast, analyze, to make this story last for the week without actually just reading it over and over again. Okay, that's actually not even why I went on this thing, but I remembered that I have a few things on there. So let's pull up TouchChat, and then I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things. So sometimes I will be like, okay, we're going to talk about comprehension questions and who was in the story. So I might go into people and say, who do you think was in the story? Now, they might pick sister. That's wrong. And again, I'm ready to say, wouldn't that be fun if they had a sister, right? The encouragement piece, even though this isn't letters or reading just yet. I'm getting them used to, you can tell me anything and I can spin this because I want to know what you think. Wouldn't that be fun if she had a sister? But I'm wondering if you're thinking girl, which is the one under it. Because you know what? They both are girls, aren't they? You're right. You're kind of walking them through. And you know what? Let's pay attention. Sister starts with S. Girl starts with G. Right? And you're pointing out, how else could you use what you know to make choices or answer questions reliably? You can use the picture, but you can also pay attention to that word above that picture, can't you? You can use those letters that start those words, can't you? That's where first letter comes in big. So sometimes I'm doing comprehension questions. Other times I'm doing actual stories. And that is where you have incredible opportunities for errorless language. And again, I get into this in the conference on Friday, and I have a lot to say and share about it. And I've already done a whole webinar on just the strategy, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think we need to consider that literacy isn't just this page on AAC. The other thing I will do is when I know they have a sight word, sometimes I will just go in and I'll see if this is going to let me. And I will clear the image of a button. Oops, did I not say that? Just a minute. I'm going to go in, edit the button, clear the image, save it. And now they just know that sight word. And we start increasing sight words as we remove pictures. I also don't put pictures in my message window. That's something that Jane Farrell had led the charge, and the research confirms that seeing the print, even without the message window, without the pictures, helps the kids learn. And if they have pictures in their message window, we're seeing that they're not necessarily learning any of those pictures, sight words. You can also go into your edit page on TouchChat, and we're going to go through LAMP and Proloquo as well, so don't worry. You can go to, I'm sorry, just a minute. You can go to the settings and be sure that Tap action is set to speak in enlarged text so that when they make something speak, all they see is text. Let me show you.
I want
That's technology for you. Let me remirror just a minute. So when you tap the message window, it pulls everything off the screen and only shows the text. And then you're able to say, oh my gosh, look what you wrote. They're seeing just the words. I want to eat crackers. Thank you for writing that. And we're being very explicit in our vocabulary. Sometimes you're telling me, sometimes you're writing me. And love that. Look at how some of those things can be done in Proloquo. And I see the chat is filling up. Should I stop for a moment?
No, it's fine. I'm just putting some of your instructions as you're going.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'm on scanning in Spanish at the moment. So let me just do a few setting things so that we don't get too crazy here. I'm going to change my language to English just for ease of use for all of us. And I'm also going to change my access method and turn scanning off. So we don't do anything harder than we have to. Here's one thing that you need to do in Proloquo. If you when you load Proloquo, the alphabet comes up like this. If you want ABC order, it's set to go. I personally choose to use QWERTY or the layout that will be on every on-screen keyboard and every keyboard for the rest of their lives. And so then you have to make that adjustment within here, which I believe is vocabulary. No, appearance. I just did this, you guys, and now I can't change it back. Keyboard, just a minute. Is it grammar? Oh boy. Oh my God, is this interaction? Interaction, keyboard button, typing view. Did you guys see that? Interaction, keyboard function, typing view. And now when you pull it up, you're going to get the QWERTY keyboard from the iPad itself and word prediction if it's turned on. So yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you right there. Just a question in the chat. Can you explain again what you said about when you're talking about their writing versus telling? How are you describing the difference?
Yeah, so when I literally when I'm face to face with them and they're using their device, I'm saying, tell me and talk to me. And then when I come around and I say, I'm reading what you wrote, whenever I'm referring to the print, I'm talking about writing. Whenever I'm not able to see their print and I'm hearing, I'm talking about talking. They don't get that explicit in the comprehensive literacy for all. Do some of you have other ideas or strategies around that? That's kind of how I have delineated it, but it's not because it's all research based or anything.
I like that idea.
Okay. That's kind of landing for me too. I also will use first letter. Like there's, we're errorless here. We're going to pick a letter, any letter. Oh, let's look at what words come up when you pick that letter. That is like, I do not want you to be afraid of the keyboard. And I understand that none of these have meaning for you yet, but look what happens when you hit one letter. So, and again, if you already have their personal alphabet and they pick a letter, you pull up that match, and that you picked a letter that matters to you. You picked P for puppy, and I heard you have a puppy at home, or I heard you want a puppy, or did you know I have a puppy? We have that in common. We both love puppies. And so any letter is the right answer, but we're getting comfortable with this keyboard. When we're working in here regarding the story or whatever, maybe you're going to say,
Feelings.
how did they feel in the story? And maybe they're going to pick excited.
Excited.
And so then I might just model, right? I feel excited.
Excited.
Said Sally. Like it doesn't, whoever it could be in the category. And then I'm gonna
excited. I feel excited.
And then when, let's see, I believe it's an appearance. Display image text or text only. And that's where I feel pretty strongly that you just have that be set for text only so that those words pop out both visually and allow them to pay attention. The message window size can also be adjusted. Sometimes we have it really small because we really want them to see and operate and match those pictures, but making it a little bit bigger has proven to draw attention to those words in isolation rather than associated with their pictures. The other thing you can do with Proloquo is I'm just going to touch a few of these things just a second. You can go in and dim, show, or hide buttons so that buttons with particular sight words, buttons that are core words, things like that, you can have them be higher contrast, bigger lighting, or the only ones revealed. I think this is the only app that allows you to dim. So it's like you can almost do that middle stage where you hide them all, but the words you're wanting to highlight, and then you can do a dim where they have some visual distraction with all those dimmed. And by the way, when they're dimmed and you touch them, they don't speak. Or you can do shown. And so I feel like that it's a neat way for some of our kids who maybe need that middle step back into from hide, show, multiple choice to I'm going to inhibit my need to touch all the buttons, or I'm going to filter out some visual distraction and actually focus in on words. For those of you using LAMP, I want to be sure we take a peek at that. Back. You can do one hit, a transition, or a full. It also comes in English and Spanish, by the way, which is beautiful. Sometimes I will set a separate one that is my vocabulary builder, which means I've already built what words are going to be available to them based on the story. That does take some front loading, but it relieves your paraeducators from having to do a lot of work, and it lets that student potentially be a little bit more independent in their participation in the story because only the words you want are available to them. However, remember that when you do that, you are limiting vocabulary, and sometimes that's good. It keeps kids on task. Sometimes it prevents them from being creative. So remember, vocabulary builder is suggesting that there's always a right answer, and revisiting, revising it might require you to open up to the full version. So this is the full. And remember with TouchChat, everything is, not much is beyond two hits away. So if we're doing people, mom, people, dad.
Dad.
So who's in the story? But if you go to spelling, you are
R.
able to touch and stay on that page. It doesn't come back to that every time. I don't think that LAMP initially has word prediction set up, but you can create that in there. And they do have that phonics set up where it says the sound. And TouchChat also has a phonics keyboard in theirs, but the phonics keyboard is in the QWERTY layout. Let me just show you that really quick. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Can you talk about when you're using text, how will using text only influence the learning of the icons for communication?
It won't. So you have to know what your goal is. If your goal is to learn the icons, then leave them. If your goal is to increase literacy skills, then as you're learning sight words, you will remove icons because they're still going to have the motor plan. The motor plan is the same. You're not moving buttons. But ultimately, in order for kids to independently read or write, they need to see text and letters without pictures. So, but if you're at an early literacy stage and if you're at an early literacy stage and an early AAC stage, I'm not removing symbols because my first goal as an SLP is that they can communicate using symbols. But I'm always thinking about, are they ready for me to pull back the symbol, maybe even for their name, and use just that word? And so, but for sure, if you remove the symbol, you're not teaching that symbol anymore. But some of the first words are the first symbols they've already know and they know well, and they don't need the symbol anymore because they know the location, and they don't need the symbol anymore because they know the sight word. So it's not the hill to die on. It's just a strategy. I don't know. Does anybody have rebuttals to that? I mean, if you're against it, speak out, because I want to hear others' point of view on that.
I think you can move on. That was
okay.
Clarification. Thank
you. All
you.
right. All I was going to do was go into TouchChat and show you that in groups you have phonics here, and that is where you have a keyboard that's in the QWERTY layout, but it doesn't say the letter, it says the sound, including some of these.
Sh, g, g.
And I set up word prediction on a phonics page, and often this is where I do most of my spelling activities, because I want to focus on the sounds and the sounds that they can make in their head, even if they're nonverbal, right? What does the R say? And then they hit it. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong letter. What does the R say? You're right, it says and then they have that auditory internal voice, that external voice trying to match that auditory voice. You say it in your head, I say it out loud, those kind of things. You say it on you touch it on your talker and you say it in your head. You write it on your talker and you say it in your head, those kinds of things. So the phonics keyboard may need to be tweaked if you want to add word prediction, but I definitely feel like that this helps some of our kids create that internal letter sound correspondence.
And
so
is it true that if you don't see your phonics keyboard on TouchChat, it may be the vocabulary and that you need to add it?
So you need to have the latest version of TouchChat. Well, and I believe your iPad has to be running on 10.10 or higher, because TouchChat itself won't update beyond your iPad, I believe. And if it does, then it's super glitchy. So you have to have word power. So you can't just have TouchChat, you have to have TouchChat with word power. I have only found the keyboard in the 60 button grid. And then,
And you may have to, you can add it to a different layout if you want, right?
yeah, the whole page can just be imported to a different layout or different language set.
There's another question in the chat. Can I change Proloquo to Go to display text instead of icons for only specific words, or is it all word text or icons? And I think
all or nothing.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's all or nothing, but you can, but if you take the picture off of the button, then it will be, then that button will only project. Let me just go on. Let me just show you. So let's say that I'm going to go into, is that right? Wait, where's the keyboard? Where's the display? So let's say I want to leave the display with image and text.
I want
But if I do of
of
is just going to do of. So if I have a button that doesn't have a picture, then that will only the word will display. So if you remove the picture from the grid, then it will also be the only one in the sentence that doesn't have a picture in the message window. Does that kind of make sense? Wow, that was a struggle to put the words together there. But that's because it's 1 o'clock. You guys stuck it out. I hope this was helpful. I hope it kind of gets you thinking about how am I going to incorporate low tech, high tech? How am I going to use those 10 elements that they've identified? And we all, resonate with all of us. And how do I keep that as my driving force and get creative with all of it? We are going to be back. Sari and I are on the chatter next week. And we are going to just lead a discussion. I mean, I have no PowerPoint, okay? Lucky you guys. And it's like, hey, this came up in the book. Anybody have ideas? Do we want to go out in breakout rooms? Like, we'll do whatever you guys want. But so some of you have been doing the book study and like, I'm wondering about this, or how do I find out technology that might work for a visually impaired for that? Or, I don't really have any, how does low tech work with this? Whatever. Or if you're like, I just figured something out that I don't even think anyone's ever learned before and I want to share it, then come and share it. So that's what next week is all about. We're doing just a chatter. Let's talk about how the first 2 chapters settled. What have you tried? What worked? What didn't? What are you wringing your hair about regarding the beginning of this? So we'll see you all who can make it and would like to be part of that discussion next Tuesday.
Brenda, there's just a question in the chat about the AAC Apps sales that usually happen in October. And I just saw Proloquo, and I think Proloquo for Text posted with their discount dates. I'm going to try to find it. So if you want to
usually, to be honest, it's funny that Brittany just said that. I was like, I usually just Google Laura Enders, and she has like some amazing graphic that will show, that throws it all up. Yep, she posted it this week. All right, so that's somewhere.
I think AAC Bootcamp also does. So I'm going to put Lauren Enders here in the chat, and AAC. Oh no, Fine Motor Bootcamp. They always post them. But those, good idea, Marcia. Those are good to look out for.
And Laura Enders is always like, if you want to know anything about anything, she's really on top of making sure that she's posting everything she can, everything she gets wind of. All right. Hopefully we'll see most of you next week. We'd love to hear more from you and less from us. Okay.
And if you're able to join next week for the chatter, we will put those AAC app deals that we find in our chatter notes for you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Just so you know, I have a 2 o'clock school training an hour from here, so I
Okay,
really
all right.
super have to go.
No problem.
But
That
thanks
was
for your
great.
support. Was it? I mean, I was kind of all over the place as usual for me, and I
No.
also was like a lot of that stuff I get into way further detail, and I didn't want to I didn't know where to go.
I mean, the comments that we got were really specific and good. So I think
so.
yeah, I think it's good. And then anything that comes up, we can talk about in the chatter. I feel like if people have more questions about it and they went to this webinar, we could continue it. So sounds good. Good job.
Did you stop the recording?